The Scrovegni chapel was built in 1303 by the will of the wealthy banker Enrico Scrovegni, perhaps with the intent of bringing honor to his father, mentioned by Dante among the usurers of Inferno in the 17th canto of his Divine Comedy, in a group very close to Satan. Consecrated in 1305 and dedicated to Santa Maria della Carità, it served as both funeral and honors chapel, given its proximity to the family palace, today completely disappeared. The exterior facade has exposed bricks, with a simple gabled roof and decorated with an ogival mullioned window and a Gothic portal. Along the southeastern wall, there are 6 tall single-lancet windows. The internal structure is just as simple. It consists of a single barrel-vaulted nave divided by 2 small altars on either side. Even so bare on the exterior, the chapel has the most important pictorial cycle executed by Giotto between 1303 and 1305. In these paintings, the artistic maturity the master has reached with respect to his previous works is clearly represented, as he used new and more elaborate color techniques. Thanks to them, he gave volume to the shapes with a skillful use of color that can vary depending on the intensity of incident light. The frescoes cover completely the walls and barrel-vaulted ceiling, which, with its deep blue, is the backdrop to such a prodigious symphony of colors that is breathtaking. The vault, dotted with medallions depicting the Blessed Saviour, the Madonna with the Child, angels and saints, despite having been created by the students of Giotto, maintains a high decorative quality. On the walls, the panels are like frames of a film and narrate the events clearly, at a time when few knew how to read and write, and only the images could teach. The main theme is the story of the life of the Virgin and of Christ, since the events that preceded his birth up to those following his death, to be concluded on the exterior facade with the Last Judgment. Entering the chapel, narration begins to unfold as a downward spiral starting from the upper right wall near the triumphal arch. The first series of 6 episodes covering the stories of Joachim and Anne, Mary's parents, begins with the expulsion of Joachim from the temple and continues towards the entrance, and then resumes on the opposite wall with the 6 episodes of the stories of the Virgin. The cycle ends with a triumphant arch decoration. Starting from top, you can see God the Father entrusting Archangel Gabriel with the mission of the Annunciation. Farther down on the right, the Visitation. On the median fascia of the right wall, starting from the arch, there are the first 5 stories of Jesus' life, which continue, starting from the entrance, on the opposite wall with other 6 episodes. The story continues on the left side of the arch, where you can see Judas' betrayal. Following the spiral logic described earlier, the story continues in the lower area of the facade, with 5 stories of the Passion, from the Last Supper to flagellation. It all ends on the opposite wall with the last 6 episodes ending with Pentecost. In this long cycle, the compositional schemes and the details chosen by Giotto are proof of his pictorial language, considered modern for that time. One example is the Nativity, where the Virgin is depicted unusually bareheaded. There is also a rather dry and concise painting style, where the gestures of the characters tend to a drama that goes hand in hand with the narration that becomes increasingly urgent. In the crucifixion, for example, tension is growing and is represented through the narration of the protagonist's gestures. The soldiers only interested in dividing the robes of Christ, and the pious women tormented by pain. By proceeding, you can see one of the most popular sections, the arrest of Christ, where the focal and emotional core is the meeting between Judas and Christ, almost completely enveloped by a large mantle of the traitor. Here the expressiveness of the profiles of the two characters is very strong. Judas's hypocrisy contrasts with the face of Christ, conscious and austere. The Last Judgment is thought to have been largely carried out by collaborators of Giotto, while the figures of Christ, the Virgin, the angelic hosts and the bidders group, whereas the commissioner Enrico Scrovegni belonged to the master. Iconographically, the composition is typically medieval. From the observer's point of view, the center is dominated by Christ, the judge, in an iridescent almond. At his sides, there are the angelic hosts, and beneath them, the apostles on the throne. A curious note is made up of two heavenly creatures placed in the highest part of the fresco. They are all in the sky and revealing to the faithful the coming of the New Jerusalem. On the left, below Christ, saints and resurrected are painted. On the same rocky floor, you can see Mr. Scrovegni, kneeling, who presented the model of the chapel to Santa Maria della Carità. His figure is not as small as the remaining protagonists, a tangible sign of the importance of the commissioner. Below Christ is the cross of his passion that strictly divides heaven from hell. Here the scenery is dramatic and chaotic. The damned are transported by rivers of fire to end up devoured by Lucifer's insatiable maw. A terrifying fate that was supposed to be a warning to all the faithful. In Satan's realm, there are powerful sovereigns, but also members of the clergy. The high prelate blessing while receiving money is a clear condemnation by Giotto against the corruption of the Church, skillfully stigmatized by contemporary Dante Alighieri in his Divine Comedy. Please note, finally, one last narrative fascia. On the bottom area of the walls, painted in faux marble, the monochrome allegories of the 7 virtues and of the 7 vices. Giotto contrasts the way of sin to the way of salvation. It will be up to the man who has free will to choose his own path. In the presbytery, covered by a cross vault, there are 3 marble altar statues with great expressivity, depicting the Madonna and Child with 2 angels by Giovanni Pisano. Behind them is a pentagonal apse where Enrico Scrovegni's tomb is placed. The walls above the choir contain 6 stories of the Virgin, and the other frescoes portray Mary Magdalene's communion, Christ and Mary Magdalene, and saints. In the 2 little chapels near the apse, Giotto makes a perfect perspective with convergent lines towards an ideal vanishing point behind the altar. The painter, who was already considered modern for the iconographic standards of the time, in this way anticipates a Renaissance spatial trend.